Hello Taurus friends, I'm Annie Botticelli and welcome to my April 2020 horoscope report for you. This is a month where the outer planets are still very much on your side and you've got those as buffers and protectors for the inner planets, which are the ones closest to us, that are mostly moving in a manner that is not harmonious to your placement. Okay, we're going to talk about how you can reframe this, how you can actually use this to your benefit. We're also going to talk about the impending Venus retrograde, and this is really important for everybody because between the pre-transit shadow period and post-shadow transit period or post-transit shadow period, this will last for almost 4 months. Venus, besides being the ruler of Taurus, which is why it makes it even more important for you, also rules a lot of dominions of life, love and relationships, finance and money, and beauty and self-esteem and design projects. So the energy of Venus, covers a lot of ground, and when it's out of phase, there are certain implications and certain things to understand, and especially because it's your ruler. When our ruler goes retrograde, there's a different quality of experience that is important to note. Okay, so we're going to talk about all that. We're going to talk about this period of time between March 30th and April 9th, which March 30th is when, after the end of the Mercury retrograde transit, which ended towards the beginning of March, but it didn't get situated until the end of March because the post-transit retrograde didn't get fully clear until March 30th. So between March 30th and April 9th, we have no personal planet retrograde influence whatsoever, which is completely critical because it's the last period of time we have in all of 2020 with this energy. Now, the retrogrades are not to be feared. They can bring amazing things, and I will be talking at length over this time of the retrogrades as to what good things, what ways to align yourself with these retrogrades. But there are some very specific things that really want to have the momentum, the zest, the oomph of not having the inward and backward energies of retrogrades encroaching upon them. Okay, and for those things, we want to try to move those things into the March 30th through April 9th. April 10th is when the pre-Venus retrograde transit shadow period begins. So every day, April 10th and after, until we get to May 13th when the actual transit starts, we'll go deeper into the types of things that the retrograde tends to bring. Okay, so the first thing to know has to do with Venus being your ruler, okay? When your ruler goes retrograde, sometimes the things that it rules will start to really show effects of going backwards. Now, if you're a person who was born with Venus retrograde already, you might have some opposite effects to what I described, but it's only going to be through your own experimentation that you can really see if this is a factor for you, because calculating whether the shadow period, you were born in a shadow period or the actual retrograde, it's not always readily apparent. So that's why I always offer experimentation for you to see. Are the things that I'm talking about coming up for you, or are there opposites? Okay, so you have to learn to have your own rhythm with these retrogrades, and the more you pay attention, the more you can get this really awesome conscious working relationship with this period of time. Like for instance, for me, I have Aries rising, so when Mars goes retrograde, I've learned I just don't I don't force any projects, I don't do any special projects, I don't take things on, I plan trips for that time, I plan resting for that time. I'm not a rester by nature, I'm a doer, but that's exactly what is, having a Mars rulership tends to bring that. So I've learned that instead of frustrating myself and getting all aggravated by trying to push during that time, I just allow for my life to match that cycle. So this is the same thing for you with the relationships, with the money, with the design projects, with, self-esteem. Things will tend to get closer to you where you're like trying to push out and do this and do all this and stretch and reach and all that. The retrograde tends to bring things closer inside yourself and closer to home, just like right in your being. So for the things like a big launch, a birth of a project that you've been waiting for forever, a new beginning of something that needs a lot of momentum, a long-term project, a big deal, decision or agreements. Those are the things that if they flow in between March 30th and April 9th, that's when we want to try to lock some things in. And you'll see in that period of time, I'll be doing a big reveal for a big birth for myself, and you will all get let in on that very soon. And so, so those are the kind of things that you want to try to push there. only if it's intuitively in the flow for you. You have to use your intuition and your flow as your personal guide to supersede anything that I or anybody else says. But if you understand this and you know that you're likely to not have a lot of momentum for new projects for the whole rest of the year, then birthing those new projects now, starting new projects now in that March 30th to April 9th window is really going to help you. What the retrogrades are good for is going back over things, breathing life into old things, doing edits, doing business as usual, resting, relaxing, doing inner work, doing psychological work, addressing things that have been swept under the rug. When Venus, retrograde comes, the things that Venus rules, which had been swept under the rug comes up and all this stuff swirls in the air. And if you have an issue in love and money or design or self-esteem, it's going to come up. But what is wonderful about this, and please let me help you reframe this, okay? Because people have come to fear retrogrades, they've come to fear transits that they think are going to bring things up for them. But if you are consciously greeting everything in life as a reflection of what is resolved and flowing well and what isn't resolved, then you never have to fear a transit again, because you'll know that your barometer for how you've done so far with your work in the inner and outer realms, the things that are still unresolved will be so well revealed to you that it's like pinpointing. Like, okay, so I had relationship issues in the past, and now in this time of retrograde, certain things that used to come up aren't coming up anymore. So yay, we healed that. That's done. But this thing is still coming up. So looks like we need to target our energy here. It's a magnificent time for scheduling like personal inner work, like, psychological work, hypnosis, past life regression, trauma healing, anything that's helping you to get on track, goal setting, coaching, things like that. And couples counseling. A lot of times, like I said, things are going to come up with this retrograde. So it's important for you to have in place some appointments or some resources or help so that when they do, you can do something different this time. Anything that you heal will be likely to not come up in the future. Okay, that's what we're really going for. Okay, so I do want to talk some more about Venus retrograde, but I do also want to talk about some other factors that are happening for Taurus this month. So because the personal planets which are closest to us, the Sun, Mercury, Venus, and Mars, are mostly focused in fire and air, those are planetary placements that are not in natural sync with your placement. So when we have months like that, it usually means that there are sometimes more obstacles standing between us and what we're trying to do. So it will be your job this month, like between March 30th and April 9th, to push through obstacles to try to reach your goal. But then if you keep pushing and it's not happening, to tune into your intuition and say, maybe the things that are coming up are telling me it's not time to do this. Okay, so it's possible that some of the things you're trying to accomplish aren't what you're supposed to be doing. So that is a big question to ask yourself. Do I have resistance to the outcome of what I'm trying to do that I need to clear? Or is the universe talking to me through this language of not letting things work out, be worked out, so that I can stop and take inventory of the situation and assess if it's really ready to come out or if I should be directing my energy somewhere else. Okay, so something else to know is that Venus is moving through your first house. This is a pretty fun time because Venus moving through the first house gives you more personal magnetism, more charisma. If you need pictures taken of yourself for marketing or family photos, something like that, doing that between, like March 30th and April 9th, you'll have this energy of Venus in the first house, and you'll also have this, movement of this. It's like a magnetism. It's just the best way to explain it. So it's like, it makes people more likely to listen to you. It makes you more persuasive. It makes, people more interested in what you're doing. So this could be a really big time to plug something important for yourself, or to take these pictures, something that you'll have for a lifetime. While you have the mix between the open window, free from the personal planet retrogrades, and Venus moving through your first house, that combination can make you, extra persuasive. The sun moves through your 12th house before it gets to your birthday, or the sun moving over your moon or rising sign if you're watching for your moon or rising sign. So the weeks before your birthday are really critical because the 12th house is being lit up. When the 12th house is lit up, and now, for those of you more towards the end of the month, this is going to be happening more towards the end of April or into the beginning of May. But it's still coming for all of you. And you'll know that it's there because when it's there, you know, your dreams might be more notable, your sleep cycles might be more disturbed, or you might, you know, sleep might factor in more heavily. You might be asking questions about, like, do I need to have more rest? How do I solve these sleep problems? Recurrent dreams, nightmares, fears, addictive tendencies flaring up, anxiety, or just the drive to go deep into spiritual and esoteric practices. You know, there are sweet and challenging traits to the movement through every placement. There's no one placement that's good or bad. There's a spectrum of potential. So the sun is like a spotlight. And when the spotlight goes on in your subconscious mind, which is like your 12th house, your unconscious, your subconscious, it's like casting a light where it's kind of icky, where we don't really look. You know, when you see all the gross things that we see, like if you look in your attic and you haven't been in there, you know, but we see also often hidden gems, like things you were looking for, things that have nostalgic or other value, something that's worth a bunch of money, you know, some stock certificates or something like that. So it's casting this light into the hidden realm, so where either you're drawn to seek in the hidden realm, or you're drawn to be behind the scenes, or be in a quiet space, or be in a resting space before this big rebirth, this big renewal, this big you know, launch of this clean slate that happens when the sun crosses over your Taurus placement. When it is your birthday, you get birthday wishes. Okay, so this is important to know because some of you are going to have your birthdays this month. The birthday time is when the sun in the sky gets back to the same point that it was at in your chart. Every planet represents some areas of life in our human experience, and the sun represents our desire. So birthday wishes are astrological. That's where they came from. And when you make your birthday wishes, Jan Spiller says we get 10 wishes. That's always resonated with me, so I've always done that. I'm not sure why, honestly, but that's what I've done. And if you've been only doing one birthday wish, extend it out to 10. See what happens, right? It's not going to hurt to try. So saying your birthday wishes out loud, writing them down, and feeling them as if they've already come true is part of how you supercharge your wishes. If you want more information on how to make wishes come true, you can search for Annie Making Wishes Come True and my video about this. I'm using astrological power periods to manifest the life of your dreams, basically, is more in that video. But I just want to kind of put it out there to see the time before your birthday as the time to see the things that you don't want, so you can get more clarity about what you do want. And then you can align your efforts in that way. It's also a time to conquer fears, you know. Many people get anxious in the weeks before their birthday, and they think it's just because they're getting older, and they're like, oh gosh, I'm looking over the last year, am I doing what I want to do? Like, they think that that's why the anxiety is coming up, and that's partly true. But what's more true is that is a natural byproduct of the sun moving through the 12th house, because it's putting a spotlight in your unconscious where, you know, it's dark and where the fears and the challenging negative patterns lie. Okay, so Mars is continuing to move through the 10th house. So work and career is looking like it will have some extra oomph for you. Wherever Mars is, I call it the border collie of the zodiac. It's like you find yourself hot on that area of life. And so all of a sudden you're like, wow, I'm really putting a lot of focus into work or my career or my place in the world. For those of you who don't need to make money or aren't in the workforce, it's like your place out in the world. It also can have to do with father figures and, bosses and becoming your own authority figure or an authority figure, being known for that. So that type of energy is likely to come up for Tauruses at this time. Also, friendships and networking are really critical. So if a friend says, you need to meet this person, or I need to get you in touch with this person, this is a period of time where you want to listen to that, because the odds that you're going to be led on a path that brings you to what you want, more of what you want, are increased, because Mercury is lighting up the 11th house, which is your friends and networking. It's also having to do with groups and large organizations and the internet. So if you've been wanting to bring out or expand your internet presence, this could be the perfect time for that. And if it's a big launch between March 30th and April 9th, you can do it there. Or if it's just kind of expansion and, tweaking things you already have up, you can do that at any time. Okay, so let's see. About that. All right, so expect some notable relationship activity in the days around April 7th, because that's when we have the full moon in Libra. So fullness, completion, fruition, drama, something notable happening in the days around the 7th. I say around because many transits, we don't just feel the effects on the day. Like if you follow the full moons, like for me, I have trouble sleeping at the full moons. And if I forget that the full moon is like right then and I'm not sleeping, then I'm like, oh, right, it's the full moon, isn't it? And then I'm like reminded, yes, it's the full moon, okay? So 2 to 3 days before the full moon happens, I often can't sleep. That's because the influence of the moon, the full moon, you can feel it days before and after. And if it's an eclipse, which is not happening this month, but just so you know, eclipse, full moons, and new moons, you can feel those energies even more before and more after. Their orb of influence extends out further beyond the time of actual occurrence. So just kind of look out for that energy for your relationships and maybe leave a little space in case there's something that comes up that has to be addressed. And remember that this is a theme that's going to be coming up over the upcoming 4 months, as between April and the end of July is when this Venus retrograde transit is taking place. Okay, so between April 10th and May 13th is the pre-transit shadow period. May 13th through June 25th is the actual retrograde. Then from June 25th through the end of July is the post-transit shadow period. To understand these shadow periods versus the actual transits, I always like to use the analogy of making a U-turn. When you're cruising along and you're like going the speed limit or over and you're just flowing and people are moving at the speed they're supposed to, which is sometimes rare, but let's pretend that's happening. That's like when a planet is going direct. It's like, whee, I'm moving, it's flowing, everything's happening. Then when you have to make a retrograde, which is representing the turning around to go backwards energy of the retrograde, you have to slow down to make a U-turn. And you have to like maybe get in the other lane and everybody is like going fast and you're trying to get over, and then you have to slow down and there's like this awkwardness. So that awkwardness, that change in phase, that bringing in of the certain elements that are going to be in the retrograde are happening during the shadow period. And then the post-transit shadow period is like when you've made the U-turn and you're bringing everything back up to speed, So it's like, okay, now you've got to you get in the lane and now everybody's still going fast and there's kind of awkwardness until you get up to speed again. So that's what it's like. So April through the end of July is going to be very much centered around this. So really make the choice to be an observer in your life during this time, especially with Venus as your ruler, because it will be so telling for you and you'll be able to understand how future Venus retrogrades may affect you. Not to say that every manifestation is the same, because sometimes it's retrograde in a different sign, it's retrograde in a different house, but the general types of ways that love and money and finances and design and self-esteem things come up, and the way things move for you in your life, you're likely to understand that more when you observe what happens here. Okay, so I have created a massive amount of Venus retrograde resources for you. I'm going to list those, but then I'm going to give you a couple of other key points to remember about Venus retrograde. If you search for Annie Botticelli Venus retrograde, you'll find my very comprehensive video on the topic. I highly recommend you watch that as soon as possible because, and that's why I put these out a month before, you want to know the things that are good to do during the retrograde and not as good to do during the retrograde, so that if you have to do some things in that period of time between March 30th and April 9th, then you'll be able to know that and take action, right? Okay, so the second thing is that I have a massive series on Venus retrograde through the houses and signs at AnnieHelpsYou.com. That's my main website. So on that site, but if you search for Annie Botticelli Venus retrograde, that blog series should also come up. You can start doing your homework on Venus retrograde in Gemini, so you understand the general implications. Now, as far as the house placements, we're going to get into that as we are getting into the transit, but just start familiarizing yourself with this energy. I also have a blog, a written blog on Venus retrograde, which summarizes the things in the video and also has other points I've added over time. But in general, you're not seeing clearly in love, beauty, money, self-esteem, things you're going to do to your body from a self-esteem or adornment perspective, including wardrobe and hair and tattoos and things like that. And you're not seeing clearly when it comes to design projects. Okay, this is the general implication. So that means many people look back over the time of the retrograde and look at things that they did and choices they made and say, what was I thinking? Because they weren't seeing clearly and they made these big decisions in those areas of life. So usually it's indicated to not make big decisions in those areas of life, if possible, because you may not be seeing clearly. Now remember, there is always exceptions. There are certain people that will have their flow. You just have to go with it. But this is in general what happens. So it's better to not spend a bunch of money. It's better to not buy a new wardrobe unless, okay, and these are the big unlesses. There are caveats to it. As long as the expenditure is low stakes for you, you can do whatever the heck you want to do. It's only the high stakes things. If it's short term, if it's an interim thing, you need to dress for an occasion, a certain occasion, it's fine. Short term, low stakes. If you're going to like have to put it on a credit card because you don't have the money, that's more high stakes. If you can redecorate your house, as people are really drawn to do in Venus retrograde, but they're not usually seen clearly, okay, as far as the design. If you can redecorate your house and then at the end of Venus retrograde, if you hate everything that you designed, if you have the money to just redecorate it again, then it doesn't matter because it's low stakes for you. But for many people listening, it's high stakes to buy a new wardrobe, to get a tattoo, to cut all your hair off, to, redecorate your house and spend, however much on that. So doing experimental things, bridge things, like looking into things that you might want to do. Get a henna tattoo instead of a regular one to try it on and test the design. Like, the more you can experiment and feel into things, the better. Also, you want to keep your commitments light because things are likely going to come up and the things that come up will need your attention. Now, all this being said, please know that retrograde times can actually bring in amazing things. It's not just the unresolved things that come up. Often it can bring money from the past. It can bring love from the past. It can bring a renewal of love to your current relationship. It can bring a love that you had from the past back to you. Maybe you're separated from your love by a different country or for different reasons and you're going to be reunited at that time. It's very common that someone will pay you money they owed you in a Venus retrograde, money from the past. Or past clients will come and show up for you financially in a big way for your business, or a contact from the past will help you get that, raise or bonus or new position that you want. So it's wonderful time, especially if you are not attached to what it looks like, okay, and that you're ready to show up for whatever shows up. Another visual that I want to leave you with has to do with the idea of weaving your web. Okay, so the times of more action, like March 30th through April 9th, is like active, busy, reaching, stretching, forcing, making happen. It's like an active time of creating your web, doing all the work, you're making it happen. Then the retrograde is the time to sit back and watch what comes in instead of the reaching and the striving and the trying to make, take a deep breath and just chill out. You may come to love Venus retrograde as I've come to love Mars retrograde. I used to hate Mars retrograde before I understood it because I would try to be doing things at my normal pace and it wouldn't work out because Mars is saying, hey, chill out. So Venus might be telling you, chill out, take a rest, just go on a vacation with your love. Go back to some old art projects that you did before. Don't stress about your goals. Just, hang out, enjoy what you've created. So it can be a time where you can really have a break and you can really enjoy it. Okay, so in general, you've got some nuisance things coming up with the personal planets, but they'll be short-lived. You can push through them and you can use your discernment to see what projects really need your attention and possibly just take your hands off the wheel if that's what feels like it needs to happen, or use your energy in smarter ways. You've got birthday time, which is an amazing time of renewal and rebirth, even for those of you with Moon in Taurus or Taurus rising, because it's a new blessing and clean slate that opens up when the sun crosses that placement for you. Make sure you use your birthday wishes. In general, those of you, actually quite a lot of the Taurus placements are at these crossroads. Taurus energies are at these crossroads because Uranus has been playing on, for those of you who are early placements, have been, putting, your we, me sector at crossroads. Those of you towards the end of the sign have had Pluto and now Jupiter and recently Saturn, at your home, work, home, family, inner world, outer world, place out in the world, place in your home, crossroads sector. And, those of you in between, you're either feeling what you just went through previously from the crossroads, like you're recovering from that, or you feel the crossroads that are coming more towards the end of the year and into next year from these other transits. So it's like crossroads are current for Taurus placements. And so if you understand that the energy of crossroads is happening for you, it might better help to explain what's going on in your life, and you can just know that you're going into a new direction. All of the information might not be there yet, but you're definitely standing before some life-changing shifts at this point. If you'd like to see more resources to make this your best month possible, go to anniehelpsyou.com, see my very extensive blog series. You can also go to cozybysweetstarlight.com, where I have written horoscopes 1 month early and delightful lifestyle, healthy lifestyle blogs and astrology kiss blogs like teas for each sign, how to maximize the sun moving through each sign, yoga through each sign. It's just a lovely site. And all the links that I'm talking about are also in the notes underneath the video. So when you click on more, they'll be revealed. But anniehelpsyou.com, cozybysweetstarlight.com. If you'd like to learn to be an astrologer, if you resonate with how I teach and you want to do it professionally, or you want to just dive deep into the astrological wonderland that is my very extensive, comprehensive course, then you can go to beastropro.com, beastropro.com, and you will see just how, it is like, it will blow your mind with how comprehensive this course is. It's called Becoming a Professional Astrologer Mastery Course. But if you don't want to do astrology professionally, you will just love it just to have self-study and then access to ask questions and just ongoing learning in the astrological realms. So I hope you have a wonderful month, and I'll see you next month. Bye.